Story time about how I cheated on my husband, lied about getting pregnant, and left with all his money. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Oh, this is gonna be a good one, you guys. A little background, my husband and I met 2 years ago. And lucky for me, he's a wealthy plastic surgeon. So a little backstory. I actually met him because I wanted to get a nose job. I made an appointment in his office and I went. We actually hit it off right away, even though he's older than me and, wasn't the best looking. After the appointment, I decided I would get the nose job. A few days later, I get a phone call. Guess who it is? It's the wealthy plastic surgeon who I just saw. He asked me out on a date and I said yes, of course. By the way, at the time I was a sugar baby, so I had a few sugar daddies. I figured he would just become another sugar daddy. He took me out to the best restaurant in town, and you better believe I ordered the most expensive thing on the menu. After my surgery, he would bring me food and was just really nice. Then he asked me to be his girlfriend and I decided to give him a chance. I even broke up with 2 sugar daddies to make space for him. That's when I asked my boyfriend for an allowance. He said of course. There's so much more to the story. Part 2 is up. Part 2 about how I cheated on my husband, lied about being pregnant, oh yeah, and stole all of his money. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. This was sent to me on Instagram. So like I said in part 1, I had asked him for an allowance. Of course he said yes and offered me $3,000 a month. I accepted even though it was on the low end. By the way, I still had 1 sugar daddy at this time. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I was pretty obsessed with the Kardashians. My goal in life is to look like Kim K. So now that I had a plastic surgeon boyfriend, I decided to ask him what other surgeries he thinks I could do. I already had my nose job. Now I definitely wanted to do some other stuff on my body. But when I told him, he got really upset. He said I didn't need to change anything about me and that I needed to stop looking for attention from other men. That's when I told him that would be totally impossible and that I definitely was going to keep my other sugar daddy. He totally flips out because he didn't know I had a sugar daddy. Then he asked me if I was actually in love with him. I told him that love would grow eventually, but that I really did like him. Then he started playing hard to get, like he wanted me to apologize and beg him, but I was not the type. So we ended up not speaking for a few weeks. Eventually he comes over to my apartment and asks me what surgeries I want to get done. And back to the surgery table I went. Part 3 is up. 3 about how I cheated on my husband, lied about being pregnant, oh yeah, and stole all of his money. Well, almost all of it. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. So my plastic surgeon boyfriend decides to do more plastic surgery on me. But this time, it was free. We decided to get my bum done. Again, during the healing process, he was a total angel and brought me food and took care of me. Yeah, he was also paying for all of my bills and my rent this time, even though I still had a sugar daddy. And he knew it. A few months passed and he asked me to go to Italy with him. Of course I said yes. We stayed at a beautiful place in Tuscany and then he asked me to marry him. He had planned out this whole romantic dinner and of course I had to say yes. But on one condition, that I let go of my last sugar daddy. So I told him I would, although I actually did not. So we started planning my dream wedding. We finally got married and I moved into his mansion. Then he told me that I had to get pregnant right away. His excuse is that he's in his 50s and he really wants to have kids. I said I wanted to have a baby too, but I kept taking the pill. I mean, I am just not ready to have kids or to ruin my beautiful body. This is when my other sugar daddy started getting really annoyed because I never spent time with him. It was really hard being torn between 2 men. Part 4 is up. Part 4 about how I cheated on my husband, lied about being pregnant, and stole all of his money. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. So like I said, my sugar daddy was starting to get really annoyed at me because I never spent enough time with him. That's when I broke it to him that I was actually married. He totally flipped out, called me a user, cut me off, and blocked me from everything. So that meant I was not getting money from this sugar daddy at all. It meant I was totally dependent on my husband. Remember I said my husband wanted me to get pregnant? Well, I kept taking the pill because I didn't want to get pregnant. But my husband would ask me every single day how that was going. And I was like, it's going. I even started lying, saying that I was going to go to the baby doctor just to get myself checked, and I really wouldn't. Instead, I would go have lunch and shop. Around this time, an old sugar daddy of mine contacted me, who I still had a crush on. He was like super good looking. He offered me some money and asked me if I wanted to go on a few dates, so of course I said yes. I accepted because I really wanted to just separate myself financially from my husband. I didn't want to be dependent on him all the time. So when my husband was at work, I would go out on dates with this new sugar daddy. The sugar daddy wanted me to go on a trip with him, and I had to say no. He got really upset and started asking questions. Of course, I didn't tell him that I was married, but he started getting really suspicious. He also started to catch feelings really quick. Like he always wanted to be with me. He would text me all the time. And that's when my husband finds a text message from the sugar daddy. I basically denied everything and I told him that I no longer had any sugar daddies, but my husband did not believe me. That's when he calls my sugar daddy from my phone and tells him to leave me alone. And the sugar daddy told him that only I could make that decision. So I basically had to cut off the sugar daddy right in front of my husband. My husband was like really angry at this time. So I was on my best behavior for the next few weeks. But after a few weeks, he was still really angry. So I realized I needed to start taking money out of the account that he gave me. So I started transferring money from his account to my account. And then from my account to another account at a different bank. And guess what? My husband did not notice one bit. He had several other accounts and investments and all this other stuff, so he never really noticed if anything went missing from that one account. After a few months, I had $50,000 in that bank account. I knew it wasn't enough, so I had to start taking more money out. And then a few months after that, I was at $120,000. I knew this was enough to get me a little house somewhere and just like basically live by myself. That's when I devised a whole plan. I would leave the country and buy myself a house. Even started looking for a real estate agent in other countries. But then the poo hit the fan. My husband found my pills and asked me if I was actually trying to get pregnant or not. Once again, I started lying and I told him him that of course I wanted to have a baby with him. Then he insisted we go to the doctor together. That's when he found out that I had not gone to the doctor once. He told me that if I didn't want kids, we would have to get a divorce, so I told him that I didn't want kids. That's when I told him I wanted a divorce and that I only wanted half of his stuff. He started laughing in my face and left. I knew I had to act quick because it was a matter of time before he found out I stole all that money. The very next day, I booked a flight and left. He started blowing up my phone, asking me where I was, calling me. Then he started threatening me for taking all the money in the bank account and that he hired private investigators to find me. Now I'm considering going back to him, but I honestly don't know what to do. I got myself a cute little house and even found a new sugar daddy. But I know he's still looking for me. What should I do, you guys? I think I really messed up, you guys.
Am I the asshole for telling my wife I'll purchase the coffee I want because I'm the one with a job? Recently, I've come to enjoy some nicer coffee than what I usually drink. I brew it at home, so it's not $7 drinks or anything. Instead of getting a giant bulk bag of Kirkland coffee, I've come to enjoy a $12 bag from the grocery store. It lasts over a week, maybe two, and that's instead of the $15 for about 5 weeks for the other bag. My wife doesn't work and I work from home, and she unfortunately hasn't been doing a lot around the house because of a medical condition. I've been picking up the slack while she sits around, and this has been going on for 6 months for the household and years for the job. Yes, she has depression, and yes, she's getting treatment for it. Am I the asshole for telling my wife I'll purchase the coffee I want because I'm the one with the job? I try my best and do what I can, but I have to ask her multiple times to help even with small tasks. I know she's working on the issue, but I just can't do everything on my own. Now, I make plenty of money to be able to have my coffee as a splurge. She commented on the cost, and I said it's well within the budget and I like it. I brought home another bag the other day, and she made a comment like, "You're spending way too much money on this fancy coffee. You need to go back to the other stuff." Making the run again after doing chores that morning, I snapped. I said the one with the job gets to make the grocery choices, work again, or contribute to the household, and you can have a say. Am I the asshole for calling my fiancé selfish for refusing to let my dad walk me down the aisle? My fiancé and I have been together for over 2 years. My family consists of just my dad and my older sister, and my dad has always been a single parent, devoting his life for me and my sister. I love my dad, and we have the best relationship ever. However, him and my fiancé do not get along. For example, one time my fiancé suggested my dad sell his truck, and my dad got offended. The truck belonged to my grandfather, and he doesn't have the money to get it fixed. Another example was when my fiancé got mad at my dad at a party for talking about his struggle after my mom's death. He accused my dad of collecting sympathy points. Now on to the most recent disagreement. Am I the asshole for calling my fiancé selfish for refusing to let my dad walk me down the aisle? So my dad is refusing to give my fiancé money to contribute to the wedding. My fiancé complained, but I said my dad isn't obligated to pay anything. But yesterday my fiancé told me to look for someone else to walk me down the aisle, and I asked why. He said my dad refused to help with the wedding and he should be grateful he's still invited. I got upset and said for one, he doesn't have any money, and for two, just like any bride, I want my dad to walk me down the aisle. He threw a fit saying that I was trying to ruin his mood and get him upset on our wedding day. I called him selfish for wanting to take away one of the moments that I always dreamed of. Am I wrong?
I, female 32, gave birth to my son 5 weeks ago. My husband's mom has been camping in the living room ever since and inviting people over, making a mess in the house, etc. I said nothing because if I opened my mouth, my husband would start scolding me saying his mom is there to help and I should be grateful. What I did was ignore her and focus on my son. I handle feeding, diaper change, cleaning, and wiping. I only get a few hours of sleep so my husband's mom isn't really helping with the baby. But I thought to myself, well, at least she cooks for us. Last night, I was in the bedroom breastfeeding my son. I knew that I was late for dinner, but I thought that my husband and his mom saved a plate for me. Once I was done with my son, I walked out to the room and saw my husband and his mom sitting watching TV. I asked about dinner and my husband said that it was probably on the stove. As I was walking towards the kitchen, his mom loudly said that she didn't save me any food. I was absolutely shocked and I asked her why, and she simply said, well, we didn't see you at the dinner table, so I thought you weren't hungry. I lost it and yelled that I was feeding my son. Of course I was hungry. I was actually starving. She shrugged her shoulders and said it wasn't her fault that I didn't show up for dinner, but she knew damn well that I was with my son and hadn't eaten a thing in hours. My husband asked me to not raise my voice at his mom, but I told him that he saw what happened and didn't think about me being hungry or needing food. He lashed out asking what the fuck I wanted him to do and said, I don't know, maybe save some food for me? She defended him, saying it was selfish of me to basically berate him for eating his dinner after working long hours at the department. An argument ensued and I went inside the bedroom, packed a small bag for me and my son, called my brother to come take me to my mom's house, and my husband blew up at me as I was making my way out. We argued at the door and he told me that what I was doing was uncalled for and childish. I told him that I couldn't take his mom anymore. He said I should be ashamed of myself for talking about her like that after she literally put her life on pause so she could help me. My brother came out and I got into the car and left. He got some food for me on the way and I ate like a hungry bear. My husband never stopped calling though. In his last text, he called me nuts and demanded that I return today, but I said that I miss my mom and that I like it here in her clean home with her healthy food and I would like to stay for a while. He's lost it and got his family involved, accusing me of keeping my son away from him and punishing him over food. However, I promise you that he has full access to him but chooses not to come over simply because he hates my mom and refuses to be with her in the same room. Am I in the wrong for taking my newborn son and going to my mom's house because my husband and his mom didn't save me any food for dinner? I, female 23, have been dating my boyfriend Jake, 23, since our freshman year of college. In our last year of undergrad, we decided to rent an apartment together. We split everything 50-50, including utilities, groceries, and rent. We continued living together in the same town as our college after graduation, but recently, we both got jobs in Chicago and we're currently living downtown. My dad works in real estate and has multiple investment properties. My dad generously allowed me to live in one of his properties rent-free, but he said that my boyfriend would have to pay him $400 a month for rent. My dad is very protective, but he has been nothing but kind to my boyfriend. My dad's reasoning for making my boyfriend pay rent is that he wants to make sure that my boyfriend is with me for me and not because he will have a free place to live. Keep in mind, if my dad was renting this apartment to tenants, he would charge $2,100 a month for rent. Very ritzy building in the middle of downtown Chicago. My boyfriend is mad at me because he asked me for my half of the $400 rent and I explained to him that I will not be paying the rent. My dad is only charging him. He says that we have been splitting the rent for the past 2 years, so why would we stop now? Our rent in our college town was $1,200, so we were both paying $600 a month. Our apartment in Chicago is significantly nicer and he's paying $200 less a month than when he was in college. Is the idea that my dad doesn't charge me for rent but charges my boyfriend so crazy? Am I the asshole for refusing to split rent with my boyfriend?